to demonstrate for you today some of the techniques I use to paint abstract painting on Yupo in watercolor. And the reason I love Yupo for this goes back to when I started painting, and when I first started out, I thought I would never paint an abstract because it just seemed so complicated, and I couldn't figure out how to do it on traditional watercolor paper where, if you paint over, you've lost your whites. It's hard to get that back, the white paper. But when I started playing around with it on Yupo, Yupo is very forgiving. If you're not familiar with it, it's a polypropylene paper, and it feels like a plastic, and it's impervious. The water and paint sits right up on the surface. And so the nice thing about it is you can lift back. You can get your white paper back. You can lift out anything you want at any time. If you don't like what's happening, you can take out part of it or wash the whole thing off and start over. So, it was a really nice, flexible way to get into abstract, very forgiving. So the way I like to work is to start out with 2 to 3 colors. And in the beginning, there's 3 stages. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning is just getting paint on the paper and texture on the paper so that I will have something to work with. The paints that I use, you've got a list of it. I keep my palette very juicy, so I can literally dig in with a brush and scoop out some nice blobs of paint without having any trouble. A lot of people like to dry their palette up. They work with a very dry palette, and if you're doing that, you're going to want to start out by squeezing fresh paint from the tubes so you can get the juiciness that you need to get a nice coverage, because the whole thing about Yupo is water to pigment ratio, controlling the water, controlling the amount of pigment to get the effects that you want. So I'm squeezing, this was quinacridone gold, by the way, and now I'm squeezing out a little bit of black paint. And then this is phthalo turquoise, which is a favorite of mine. And I'm just putting some blobs of that. I'm going to put a little bit more black. There we go. And I like to use big flat brushes, flats or ovals, because you can get a lot of movement and push things around, but you're not coming in with it. To me, round brushes are a little sloppy and juicy sometimes, and so I can control the amount of water a little bit better. I don't want too much water. I just need enough to get this paint into play, get it loosened up and get rid of the, oops, I went into the turquoise there. That's fine. And by the way, this is a piece of 11 by 14 Yupo that I took off the pad. You can buy it by the pad. It comes in 9 by 12 and 11 by 14, and you can also buy it by the sheet. That was blue too. I guess that was all gold I had. And I like the convenience of this because this size, 11 by 14, is like a quarter sheet, which is a nice size to work with. And you notice I'm rinsing my brush between colors because the last thing I want to do is stir this up into one big homogenized blob. I want to keep the different color identities. There'll be some mixture, but I don't want to lose everything. because then it's just all the same. So let's mix that. Now at this point, I've got nice color all over. There's some areas that might be a little bit dry, so I'm going to just hit it with the mister because I want to be able, where you see it looks a little bit white, that's probably where it's a little bit dry. And what I can do at this point is pick it up and let things run together a little bit more. And you can help it if you want to. This could get messy, so that's okay. If I have too much pigment and it feels like it's running off at an edge, that's fine. I will just take a tissue and kind of pick up whatever is extra down there and let it run off, because what I'm looking for is just kind of some nice, smooth pigment there. And at this stage, I'm going to take another piece of Yupo and I'm going to place it here somewhere. Let's go. I want my different corners to be different sizes. I don't want everything the same. Let's just do that. And just press, you don't have to smush it too hard. At this stage, I can take a paper towel, and if I want, I can wipe some of what I see here. And you can wipe it back to pure white, but I often will just do a gentle wipe to kind of get some kind of a light value pattern there. You'll see that better in a second. On this side, let's like that. I can always add or subtract to that later. So I'm going to lift this piece off now, and if you pause a little here and there as you lift it, see how I'm kind of, you can get some interesting linear marks.
So cool. That was magic.
So now I have two starts. Two is better than one, because if I'm working on this intuitively, I may need a chance to step away and work on something else and come back. I usually have 4 to 8 paintings in progress at a time, so that I can give my mind a break from one and, you know, see something different and then come back. And it just gives you time to think about things. At this stage, I will start adding textural materials. And normally I'll do it with both sides. Because of time today, I'm just going to work on this one to show you how I get started there. And I use all kinds of materials, anything that'll leave a mark. This is shelf liner. It's used, that's why there's color on there. I just recycle things. This is the stuff you put under the rugs to keep them from slipping. And there's bubble wrap, that's more shelf liner. I will also use plastic wrap. I love plastic wrap. And wax paper, that's another favorite. And there's different ways you can use it. You can crinkle it up and have it very wrinkly, but I kind of like it a little less wrinkly, and I'm not at this stage fussy about where I put it. I'm just trying to get some texture going, and things will happen later. So I'm just going to put it in this area, and if I see something happening, you can kind of tell by what's going on with the plastic. I can move things around here to get some interesting shapes, or, you know, pull different lines and things like that. if I want to do something like that. And I can lay in some, let's do some of this right here, the shelf liner. And you don't need to cover the whole thing. You just put some things down, and that'll be enough, because we want some quieter areas too. You can always add things later. So at this stage, I can also take something like a water-soluble pencil or crayon, and I can do some kind of scribble work, or let's see. That and see how it starts to resist, and it gives me some interesting shapes there. Another thing I sometimes like to do is hit it with not the mist so much, but like a regular spray bottle that just does a little squirt, and it'll start giving me some little drop shapes. I don't want to cover everything, but you know, you can get the idea there. So I would do that also with this piece, and then you just let it dry. And you have to wait till it's totally dry. I usually let it go all day or overnight because it's not soaking paint up like traditional paper. It can take a little longer for things to dry. So let's get rid of that. Now these are some results. These are dried versions of stage 1. So this was one. This was what I have left there. And then I have this. Actually, these two were twins. So I did that same process, the two painting, you know, took a print with one off of the other. And here you can see this was plastic wrap, this was wax paper, there's some scribble, this was a stamp that I pressed into the paint. This one I've got a little bit of the shelf liner right there. And I wanted to mention one of my favorite textural things is twine, good old garden twine, and you just cut a little piece and you unravel it till it gets kind of hairy and shaggy and loose. And then you can get effects that look like this. So that was twine placed in. When you get the twine unraveled, you want to spritz it with water, and it will lay down better in the paint than if you just try to put it on dry. So these are the kinds of things you end up with. And in this one, I've got some wax paper pieces in there too. Did I peel those off? I think they're gone. I think it's still there. Yeah, it's still on there. Well, anyway. Yes, the big reveal. So, and I had another little bit up here. So there we go. I think. Oh no, there's some more. There we go. That should be all of it. So at this point, this is what I have. And I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do with this, because the free application of paint and texture is over, and at this point the intuitive process is going to start, and I have to start pulling it together with some kind of a composition. Working intuitively, when I got started, I always wondered, what are they talking about? What does that mean? And basically it just means that you look at your painting and you decide to make a move, and then you do that and you see what you have, and then you make the next move, and you look at that and then see what you think and make another move, and you just keep doing that until you resolve the picture. So when you do this start, you end up with a piece of Yupo that has, here's another piece, wax paper, they're just everywhere. You have a light to mid value, sometimes mid-dark. You have paint on there, you're not starting from pure white. So at this point, you have two choices to start changing this, and you can either add or subtract paint. And I like to start a lot of times by subtracting and sort of carving this up into some kind of a shape. And I do make my own stencils out of more Yupo. I cut these out of Yupo. And in fact, I did a Third Thursday demo in July this year. So if you're a Florida Watercolor member, you can go on the website and watch the Third Thursday video, making your own stamps and stencils, and see how I do that. But all these things are made from Yupo. They're just my original design, and you can get as fancy as you want, but I tend to like simpler shapes. And I used to make things like squares that were very, perfect. But I've gotten into the wonky shape. So these are my wonky circles and squares, and it's just a little more interesting than something like that. But these have their use too. And the thing is, it's whatever your aesthetic is, you can make something to suit that. So I'm going to start carving this up into something. And I don't always use stencils to do that. I will sometimes use tape as well to isolate areas. This is a really kind of a useful stencil because I can come in and take just a little corner off or something like that. Just the way I hold it, I can get into the picture without, I don't have to use the whole thing. So I'm going to start with something like that. And I'm just going to go right here. Now this is just paper towel. I've dipped it in water. And I have a little, let's move this so you can see. I have a pad here that I can just tap off any excess off this paper towel, because if it's too juicy, it'll seep under a stencil, and we don't want to mess up more than what we intend to. So I'm just going to wipe that off, and I'm going to take that pretty much back to white. There's a shadow of color there, but I'm okay with that. And let's see, I'll turn it a different way. And let's come in over here. I want to come in and take some off over here, but I'm going to do it with something else. So we'll just take some squares off with this. Now, another thing I can do while I'm here with this stencil is if I want to add a color in this spot. That's what that looks like. But if I want to come in and add something there, something that maybe complements what I'm doing here, I can take paint and put that in. And I used these little cosmetic wedges that you can get at the grocery store. And they make wonderful little dabbers put something in there. So let's see what color would look good in there. I don't know. Here's the thing, when you don't know what to do, you just do something. So, because if you don't like it, you can change it down the road. And I'm dipping this into my juicy paint. This is not showing up. This is pure Prussian. And I'm just going to dab that on in with my stencil. And I can vary the intensity. I don't have to make it the same everywhere. I can just kind of hint at things. And it gives me some, something kind of interesting up there. And so that's adding and subtracting. I took paint out, I've added paint in. Let's see. Another tool that I use a lot is a sponge roller. And I use this this feels damp, I don't want damp. You all feel damp. You want to use these dry because we're not trying to apply paint with it. What we're going to do is smooth out a paint application. So I can pick up something here. Let's go with, this was cerulean blue and quinacridone burnt scarlet. So I'm going to take a little mixture of those. Lean more on the burnt scarlet, I think. And do something dramatic here. Let's see. Let's just come right through here. And I'm going to take a tissue. That's a very harsh line. So I'm going to lighten it here just by taking a tissue and kind of touching it gently in places to soften those edges. And then I can use my roller to just smooth it out a little bit. And especially if you're trying to lighten something, this will help do that. I'm going to take a little more out here. And then I always roll off any extra paint and keep it dry. You don't want it damp. So, there's something else going on there. Another tool that I use, where did you go? You can add something with a stamp. So I can take, this is one of my homemade stamps. This is made with a product called Foamies that you can get at Michael's. And I just use a piece of foamy for the backing, and then I cut shapes and put those on. They come with an adhesive, some of it, and I just peel and stick those. So I want to come in with some very dry paint on here. It's a lot more pigment and very little water so that it will adhere to the shape here. And let's put this somewhere. Anywhere. Right there. Now, I could leave that alone. I could also, if I wanted to, blot that with the roller and it might lighten some of it. I'm going to try it over here. So I have half more positive and half, it didn't work. That's all right. It's just more subtle over there. So, but you see how you can build things up. Now, if I have an area that I want to lighten, if I think it's too busy or too intense or something, but I want to keep some of my paint there, with Yupo, that's a little bit scary. But it's not that hard to do. I'm just going to take some newspaper to protect some surrounding areas. Let's see, I'm gonna lighten it right through there. So that will be protected. I just want to mist this area with my mister. And then I'm going to blot that. And some of it has come up. And you can do this as many times as you want to get it as light as you want. If I want that to go lighter, then I will just do it again. I'm going a little more intense there with that pattern. So that should pick up a little more paint. Oops. So that's lightened it quite a bit. And you can see the difference there. So, you know, I can continue doing this, carving things out, adding things, changing my mind about things. Let's leave this the same, return the paper. But, you know, when I look at this, I did this and I hate it. I'm not a fan, you know. I don't mind it through here, but this is bothering me. So what can I do there? Do I want to add something or subtract something? And I think I want to subtract something. So let's do it with tape this time. And a lot of times I will tear the tape so I get an irregular edge. Let's go right here. Let's go here. So you see, I'm kind of making my own stencil here. All right, and then I want paper towel. Make sure all my edges are down. Just barely dip it in the water, blot it off, and wipe. And I'm going to leave a little bit of color there. I don't want it totally light or white paper. And then we'll just peel it off and see if that feels better. So I got rid of something that was irritating me. And I can keep playing with this, trying to develop it. There's a cut. It's kind of cut in here. This went from just a rectangle color to now it's turning into something. And I can decide what do I want to do, you know, in other places. These three lines are kind of the same. That's a little bit boring. So what if I do something different to bring it down straighter or, you know, interrupt that somehow? And let's try just some plain old paint. Small brush. So I think I'll go with some cerulean here. And it's pretty thick paint. And I can interrupt that line a little bit. and not much water. It was really blotted, and so it's adhering nicely, and I can smooth it out a little bit with my roller and blend it in, soften edges. And see how I feel about that. And that's all this is, intuitively. I keep changing things and changing direction, and it takes a while to do this. I mean, I could work on this all day, trying different things, and it's not the kind of thing you want to rush. You don't want to dither, you don't want to be paralyzed, but you can certainly take your time thinking about what you might want to do next. So I'm just trying different things and seeing how I feel about it. And this feels kind of busy. This is an interesting line though here, and maybe I will take a pencil and extend from there. Let's see. A good color for that. So anything is game at any time. You can come back in with pencils or crayons. This area, again, still feels busy. I want to calm that down somehow. So I think I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna, but I want kind of a watery glaze. And a lot of people say, well, you can't glaze on maple, but you can. You just get one shot at it. So you make one pass and see what happens. And I'm going to get a bigger brush for that. So this is my 3-inch. And I'm going to pick up some color. And I'm just going to go over this to gently quiet things down. Let's see. I don't know if that helped, but we'll see. I can take my roller and soften that edge a little bit. I can let that dry. I can try it again, give it another shot. So being patient and taking things in stages is part of it. And also, I highly recommend that you turn this in different directions as you're working on it, because you'll see different things. And it's not that I'm looking for an exact subject matter, because I'm not. I usually keep it pretty non-objective, but you'll just see different patterns emerge, and it'll give you ideas. So I'm looking at this, and I think I want to take something out here. And the other thing is, if you want to paint freehand, you don't have to use a stencil or masking tape. I can just take a brush and wet an area and just blot it off. There's some toilet paper is nice for this. So I remove something there, and you can continue playing with it this way. Now I do need to introduce some darker values. That's the darkest thing I've got going. That's kind of a second thing. I've got to do something a little more than that to make this work. And I feel like I want something to come out from here too. So So I think I might take some more off of this edge. Let's do that. So that's starting to feel interesting to me. I like that. I'm still having a problem up here. One thing I did, now this is a very kind of an organic curve. This is definitely geometric. I could keep both. I can alter that. If this is bothering me, and it feels too stilted and too empty, I can bring something out there. You know, I can take that same stencil that I have here and put some color on there. And just put a few pieces out here in the perimeter. And soften that up a little. Here's one of the biggest problems you will run into working abstractly and intuitively. You will see something that you got with your texture, like that twine, and you'll think that is so cool. And it is not working with the composition. You can't be too precious about any of this. This is really starting to annoy me, so it's got to go. So I'm going to take that out, and I can do that different way. I can make it darker, paint over it. I can lift it out with something. I think we're just going to put some more Quinn's Burnt Scarlet through here. I might, just to make my life easier, I'll loosen that up a little bit, because that, oh, there's still a piece of twine on there too. The twine is a little hard to get off. I will admit that. There, all gone. So I can come in here now and put some color in. And I'll soften that. And that feels a lot less irritating. So this part of the painting, I like what's happening here. It's starting to come along. This part still needs help, and I'm not sure what I want to do with it. It's a little bit tricky. I don't know if these squares are helping me. I don't think I like how dark the blue is there. So I'm going to get rid of some of that. Not all of it. I like some of it. But let's do just a little bit of damp paper towel to lift. I'll just take it off, see what happens. All I can do is try and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, it's better though. And I can just hit it with the mister in that area and blot that up and pick up some more without losing my general, you know, what's going on there. So that feels better. I may not have to kill that area altogether. But I think this needs to be subdued a little bit. And maybe we will continue through here with some of the, oh, there's a piece of twine. Well, you see, everything just doesn't always work out right, but there we go. So I'm coming through here And I'm knocking this down a little bit. And you can see I'm painting over other Yupo. I'm not completely losing what's underneath. So it is possible. And I'll just soften that. And let's see how that's looking now. If we're starting to get somewhere. I think we are. Now, I've got two colors going here. And something that I could do would be to introduce a third color. And maybe that's what I need in here to start pulling this together and giving us kind of a focal area. So I've decided I'm extending this over here a little bit too. I think that'll help it. So it's blues and browns, and I think there's no way to know for sure until you do it, but I feel like a bright red, like a warm red, might be something that would work here. And I'm going to mix it with a little bit of that quinacridone scarlet to take the edge off. But I think I'll try coming in here. And I do kind of like that. Now, at this stage, how many minutes do I have left? 10 minutes. I need to wrap up. We are still going to need to do work on this. This is nowhere near resolved yet, and I'm making it worse. But that's all right. So I can normally I would have put this aside by now and let it dry and come back and looked at it. But what I want to show you is something that is more finished so that you can see what might come next. These are a pair of, these were twin painting starts. And as you can see, I kind of got sort of a figurative thing going. And so, you know, I went through the same stuff with this that I was doing there, adding and subtracting and changing my mind and stuff like that. And I'm in the stage here where I'm just looking for a few finishing touches. And so I have these little dots, which I like, and I thought maybe some little dots on this one would work. And let's see if I brought my dots. No, I didn't. So I have a stencil with dots, but I could take a watercolor pencil or crayon and put something like that in. Just, you know, just some little things sometime. It only takes a brush stroke or two or a line to finish something. When you get to a certain point where you really feel like things are starting to come together, you can just add something like that. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go over the top or be super tricky. When you're finishing something and you're not sure, take your time and put it up on an easel and see what you think about it before you go too far, too fast. Better to go slow and steady. So, move this one out of the way. On this one, I also feel like some line work might be good here. And I've got I'm going to pick up some of, this was burnt scarlet in this painting also. So I think I will just add a little something and blot it in some places so it's not too harsh. And I'll think about that and see if I want to do anything else. It doesn't take a lot. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you show those as a pair, do you hang them together?
I would. I wasn't worried about them being a diptych, but you could. You could. Sometimes they go in completely different directions, and you get two
I like
completely
these very
different.
much. I do too.
Thank you. Yes,
How did you, the blue, was that with the saran wrap?
this is saran wrap. This was not originally there. This piece was from the original start, and then you can see I took paint out here, I took paint out here and here, and I thought it needed something there. And so I put the paint down and stuck the saran wrap down. And you don't know how it's going to turn out exactly, but I did it kind of crumply. And then when I took it off, I took a little, my little angle brush, and I lifted out some of the paint in some of the cells to give some variety to it. And I like that better than just, that's the thing, you can adjust everything, so. But you know what, a question I always ask when I go to demos and get to take workshops from famous artists, I want to know, what's your ratio? How many paintings do you paint and how many of them turn out? The percentage, you know? And you'd be shocked. It doesn't matter how great they are, a lot of them are duds. So when you're doing this, you have to have a spirit of play, because things are not always going to work out, or it takes longer than I can show you in 40 minutes to make it work. And you have to be okay with things not working out. But every time you make a painting like this, you're learning something, and you are becoming more comfortable. It teaches you about composition big time, and just to not hold anything precious.
Now, when you did those, did you at any point start aiming for the figurative, or?
Not right away. It was putting it up on an easel and staring at it for like 4 weeks. And I thought, that kind of looks like a figure.
Yeah.
So I just went with it, you know. I really am not normally the kind of person who sees things in abstracts, but sometimes it just speaks to you. You'll just feel it's a landscape or a figure or some general floral.
Suzanne, do you like to use black a lot?
Only when I'm doing Yupo abstracts. Yeah, normally in traditional watercolor I don't use black, but I love it with this.
Have you ever tried sealing your Yupo?
Sealing it?
Have you ever tried sealing the Yupo?
Yes, those have all been, I use, what is it, Krylon Kmar spray varnish or golden archival varnish. I do seal them, and I'll tell you why. In this hotel, it's so humid, these paintings all started sticking together. And the paint was like coming off of my fingers. I couldn't believe it. So, but they're still in progress. I can't seal them yet. So
when you're doing that, you start with a mat, that you start with whatever you're using, you start because you'll end up, I mean, I've built layers up.
you mean with the varnish, or?
Well, I haven't used varnish, I've used the acrylic spray
Yeah.
on it. And
Oh, then to mat it and frame it, you mean?
well, I've actually not framed them, but got enough finish on them where I've mounted it.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can, the question is, can you put these like on a cradle or something, mount them and without a frame? And if you seal this with varnish, yes, you can. And you have to use a spray. Don't use the brush-on varnish. That'll smear it all. So use the spray. Anything else? Well, thank you.